So recently, Salesforce released its 2022 holiday predictions and its holiday planning guide for retailers. Let's start with something positive. I think we could all use some good news about this time in the year. So, how is holiday looking for 2022 for brick and mortar, and what are you seeing in terms of hybrid rates and what happened last year? What are you seeing out there in the market?
Yeah, one of our predictions actually, Paul, is that those retailers that have brick and mortar locations are going to grow at 1.5 times higher rate than those without. And a lot of that is driven by the fact that demand is not only generated, but also fulfilled by the physical store. So it's not looking at just digital, not just looking at physical, but really weaving them together and understanding the enterprise sales impact and performance for the holiday.
Let's flip things for a second too, though. I mean, I think another thing that's on everyone's mind is inflation, right? It's the worst it's been in 4 decades. Are you seeing any new consumer trends come up, and how do you see that potentially impacting the holiday season?
Yeah, of course, that's going to have a big impact on the holiday season, as it has for the last 6 or so quarters. We've been tracking in our shopping index the average selling price, and that's progressively going up. Our predictions show that it's going to go up another 10% on average over the course of the next several months. I guess, inflation is the easy way to talk about it, but there's so much more when you unwrap it, Paul. And I know you're talking to retailers all day long and you see this, but, it's obviously the cost of doing business or the cost of goods sold are off the charts in terms of labor, supply chain, manufacturing, and sources of raw materials. But you also, of course, have this glut of inventory in many cases as well. The bullwhip effect, if you will. We saw spikes in demand in certain categories. Retailers tried to chase that demand. That product got stuck in the port of LA. And by the time it got in through the domestic supply chain, we already missed the window of that demand. So that's a long way of saying inflation, but when you unpack it, a lot of other variables are impacting. What we're seeing is, again, over the course of the last 6 quarters, a progressive increase in average selling price. What that means, because people's salary and income are not increasing at the same rate and their discretionary spend is not increasing either, is that they're buying fewer products, fewer items at fewer retailers. And so we're seeing that in our data in terms of average selling price go up, order or number of products within an order or basket are decreasing, which definitely puts pressure on retailers to not only look at their top line, but we're really concerned this holiday season, Paul, that margin will likely be the Grinch that steals Christmas.
Yeah, and I think that's a good segue into one of the questions I wanted to ask you, which is in your report, you mentioned that 51% of consumers are going to most likely purchase less holiday gifts than last year. And, I'd love to know your thoughts on the impact of that. And then how do retailers prepare for potentially reduced consumer spending at that time? And how do they maintain loyalty?
Yeah, well, there's a lot there. But I'll say, there's an ebb and flow to the demand in certain categories. So it's hard to say like blanket statements around demand for the industry. But, as you start to unpack it, as we look at our data, there has been a shift, through the pandemic. We're spending a lot of time at home. So furniture, home appliances, consumer electronics really surged. Outdoor, actually, from an apparel perspective, did really well because we're outside trying to get some exercise, get away from our screens for a little while. As we see a shift getting back in the world and we see, hopefully the light at the end of the COVID tunnel, people want to get out in the world again, right? And so that means travel, entertainment, dining. And so gift giving is going to be experiential to a large degree. And then what gifts go along with that and help really accentuate that experience? Luggage and handbags, according to our Q2 shopping index, did really, really well. Outdoor and active footwear did really, really well. Some of those that are waning in terms of categories are toys, electronics, home appliances. And again, we'll see the bullwhip effect. I'm a little concerned that many buyers overbought around the demand about a year ago, and we're seeing a little bit of leveling off in those categories. So, in terms of loyalty, we do predict that about half of consumers are going to switch a retailer brand this holiday season because they're seeking value, which in many cases code for a better price. So we've been talking to our customers. I've been talking to retailers around the world about just what loyalty means and how to garner that, especially as cookies go away, marketing becomes more expensive. How do you harness your first party data? How do you activate that data? Operationalize it, if you will, and really provide the right message, which might not be a discount. It might be a personalized product or message. It might be leaning into sustainability, which is a big topic for many consumers, especially younger generations, and finding that emotional connection to really find the value, meaning show the value to the consumers as to why to stay with that retailer or brand.